Hey, it is April 20th, 2020, and I'm ready to do a quick video all about oil. And then we have this collapsing oil price that occurred today. And at the time of this video, it is negative. Okay, it's negative. And it hit, it's like in the negative 30s or 40s or whatever it was. I believe right now it finished at about negative $3, something like that. But it went from the 20s today all the way down to zero, and then it went negative. And you might first think to yourself, like, what is a homesteader going to be doing talking about oil? And that's a fair question. And I've had a strong interest in oil. I actually wrote a master's thesis on energy security and national security back in 2010. So I've always been interested in energy in general. Obviously, the oil is a big part of that. And then I also work in the energy sectors. So I actually have one foot in the business world, in the energy sector, and then I have one foot in the homestead world, and that is my lifestyle. Okay, so I'm kind of in the business world, but my lifestyle is homesteading, and I really enjoy it, and I think it's a good way to live. It's an excellent way to live. It's a wonderful lifestyle. And it also very much helps in a general preparedness manner. This is, after all, the Prepared Homestead YouTube channel. So let's talk about oil real quick. So you have this collapsing oil price. Now, what led to it? So we were 2 months ago, we were in the mid 50s. And then, over the last 4 to 6 weeks, it dropped down into the 20s. And that was based largely upon the deal or the non-deal between OPEC and Russia. And essentially what happened is that they were under an agreement basically to hold production at a certain level, right? So they didn't want to produce so much that they would flood the oil market, the global market, and that drops prices, and that kind of stabilizes oil prices across the globe, and specifically among OPEC nations and Russia. That deal did not happen, and then you had this production war, right? Saudi Arabia was going to ramp up production, and Russia was going to ramp up production, and they did, and that immediately led to a drop from the mid 50s to the mid 20s. And a lot of people think that was it was under the guise of this price war, but it was an attack on the U.S. shale market. And that might be true. I don't fully know. I suspect that that's the case, that they wanted to basically harm the U.S. shale market, because the U.S. shale market is very strong, or was very strong, but it produces oil at a higher cost than, say, Saudi Arabia or Russia. Okay, so it's harder, it's more energy intensive, it takes more to extract oil from shale than it does from a regular well where oil pumps out of the ground. Okay, so that, in the mid 20s, you were already seeing a significant hit to the shale market. Companies were laying people off slower, right? Slower. People were cutting the capital expenditures for the year. Budgets were shrinking. They were going to slow down on completions, right? Because if you can't make a profit, you're not going to continue to do that. They were starting to slow production. And then as that global supply increase started hitting, obviously the price goes down for a barrel of oil. And then you have that was a big punch to the U.S. shale market, which is your big companies like EOG and Halliburton and Exxon and Chevron and all of that. Okay, it impacts all of that, and all of the smaller energy service companies that support all of those big companies. Okay, and all the employees that work for those companies. Huge impact. Okay, then you had COVID come in, and you had all the lockdowns and everything else. So you not only have the government pressure or forcing of a lower demand, people obviously are nervous about it, and they didn't go out and they want to spend it, and they don't want to go fly, and they don't want to go on cruise ships, and All of these things led to this huge trough we're in, this huge demand trough that's literally like way down here. I don't know what it is exactly offhand, but I'll give you an example. Is that in normal times in the United States, we use between 18 and 21 million barrels a day. 18 and 21 million barrels a day. It's a massive amount of oil. Okay, depending on the economy. If the economy's really hot, we're going to be using higher amounts, and if it's slower, we use slightly lower amounts. Well, right now we're way below that kind of normal range. We're way below that. Okay, I think we're under 15 million barrels a day. I'm pretty sure we are, and depending on how long this plays out, it might even go lower. Okay, so you had that 1-2 punch, boom. So you have the price war between OPEC and Russia, and then you have COVID, and that just boom, the bottom dropped out. And so the intensity of those non-completions, the intensity of those layoffs, the intensity of the furloughs, the intensity of capping the wells, and all that has had a huge impact. Okay, and big time on slowdown in the U.S. shale market, and so our production started going down, right? Because people aren't going to continue to do those things if they can't make a profit. Okay. Then you have an escalation and an escalation, which then led to this massive drop. Okay, massive to basically nothing. And what the problem is, what's going on is that we literally have nowhere to put the oil. Okay, there's nowhere to put the oil. The reserves are all filled. The tanks are all filled. The ships, these tankers that are floating out in the ocean, they're trying to go to the refineries, and the refineries are like, we're full. Okay, and we don't have anything to refine because we don't have any trucks to load, because the trucks don't need to go out to these different places right now because of the significant lack of demand. So again, now refineries are being mothballed or shut down temporarily. And so what happens is then you have the price of oil continue to plummet, and it just went hit the bottom and then some today. And what it is like, you might ask the question, well, how can you have a negative oil price? It's like, what does that mean? Does that mean that I'm going to go to the gas station and they're going to pay me to put gas in my car? And the answer is no, they're not going to pay you to put gas in your car. What that is that people that hold contracts of futures, in other words, of oil buying contracts, are literally paying people to take the contract. Okay, they're paying people to take the contract away from them so that they do not have to take physical delivery of the oil. Okay, we use barrels of oil. That's not literally in barrels, but you can think of it that way. Because when they take physical delivery of the barrels of oil, they have to pay. It costs money to store it and all that, and have infrastructure to be able to do that. And it costs them way more to do that, to store excess oil, than it does to pay someone to take their contract. And that's how you can have a negative number. That is why we have a negative number. And that, how long that will continue, I don't know. I really don't. Okay, now you might say, what I saw today right away was this huge difference between WTI and Brent. Okay, and these are global and national indices or benchmarks that show kind of like what the oil price is. And the difference between the two, there is a actual physical difference with the type of and quality of oil. I don't know if quality is the best word, but for example, WTI has less sulfur in it, and it's easier for refiners to make gas. However, Brent is more of a global benchmark, where WTI is more of a United States benchmark. And so you might say, well, what the heck? There was this huge difference, and there was. I mean, Brent is still sitting in the mid-20s, and the U.S. is below zero. Okay, now what does that say? Well, that's kind of like, there's a lot of psychology wrapped up in this, and there's a lot of the confidence level in the U.S. shale market is way down. And again, it's a lot of this is, there's parts to this, and a huge part right now is an excess of supply. and you have a significant excess of supply in the United States right now. Now, some people might say, well, that's good, right? It's cheaper to get gas at the pump, and that's true. It is cheaper to get gas at the pump, but no one's going anywhere. And like I said, or I didn't actually say, I wanted to say this to somebody. They were celebrating the price of gas at the pump, whatever it was, and kind of lamenting on the big oil companies and talking about how good for them, they get what they deserve type of thing. And they were like, this is good. We get cheaper gas. And I'm just like thinking, like, where are you gonna go? where are you driving to? And they're not. I mean, that's the thing, is like they're not. And I just almost wanted to say to them, it's like, you know what? Food in prison is free also. Okay, food in prison is free also. So if you went to prison, you could have some free food. So there's second and third order consequences to an extremely low oil price. It's not that I want to see like a massively high oil price. I don't, because it impacts. Well, there's lots of impacts on all of this. Okay, however, the second and third order consequences of oil dropping out of the bottom. One, you're going to have more companies going bankrupt faster. You're going to have more people laid off, and I know for a fact that it's happening, and it's happening now. Okay, I know that. Okay, I have inside knowledge into this industry, and it's happening. Okay, and it's happening a lot, and it's happening fast. You have to move fast on this kind of thing, or the entire company will implode for a lot of these guys. Okay, so people are going to lose their jobs. Companies are going to go bankrupt. What does that mean? Well, again, that's putting more pressure on taxpayers, right? These people are going to go on unemployment. These companies are all going to claim bankruptcy and do reorganizations, if they even do that. All of those things are impacts when this happens. Another big impact that no one's, I don't think, thinking about is that on the backside of all of this, there's the backside, that you're going to have, the oil industry is kind of like agriculture. It doesn't just ramp up. You don't just turn on a switch and go, oh, okay, we're back, right? Start flowing again, start fracking again, start drilling again, start doing whatever. Okay, that's not how it works. It takes a while to ramp back up, and then you have fewer companies to do these things, and you have transportation issues and logistical issues, etc. Okay. In turn, what does that do? That makes us probably, at least for a time, more dependent on foreign oil than less. Okay, the U.S. shale boom, whether you like that or not, is made us much closer to being energy independent. Now, technically, we were energy independent, although when you look at certain things, like if you look at energy as a whole, we are energy independent. We produce more energy than we use in this country. However, we don't produce more refined gasoline that goes into vehicles than we use in this country. Okay, so there's some swapping and trading, and we still import a lot of oil. Okay, on the backside of all this, we could be back in kind of the same boat we were before the shale explosion. So you can say, yeah, good, we're not using. We're going to still use oil on the backside of this. It's just going to be more importation. Maybe. Okay, I'm speculating, to be honest. But those are some of the things that you should think about when considering all of these things. Now, what does that mean to you? What are some recommendations what's some things that you should do? Number one, if you haven't watched my series on self-sufficiency, I recommend it, because the more resilient you are, the more self-sufficient you are in your own life, the better you're able to handle shock. Okay, that's the whole definition of resiliency. You need to build resiliency. So that would help if you watch that series. It's all on YouTube. I'll put a link to it here at the end. You can just click on the first one and watch through it. Okay, that's not a bad way to spend your time. Number two is you need to develop and be planning for continued hard times for the foreseeable future. And I don't say that out of fear. I don't say that to scare anyone. I say that as a realist and something that you should absolutely do whatever you can to mitigate these circumstances. Okay, whatever it is. Okay, start a side hustle of some kind, right? Providing something that people need. If you have a job or if you don't have a job, either way. Okay. Number two is figure out ways that you can cut expenses. I mean, this is how companies survive. Companies survive. They go through hard times. They've got to find ways to cut the fat. They've got to find ways to improve cash flow, right? So they want to increase the speed at which cash comes in, and they want to decrease the speed at which cash goes out, and obviously also the numbers. You want to decrease your total cash flow going out, and wherever you can, you want to increase it coming in. All right. So so you're going to do those things. You're going to see where you can cut fat. You're going to see where you can start side hustles. You're going to see where you can learn skills, learn to do certain things yourself, things that you would normally hire out. Maybe you're going to take on one or two of those things now. You're going to grow. I mean, you should be growing food right now. You should be planting a garden or raising some small animals at least. I don't care if you're in suburbia or not. You should be doing something. Okay, you should be doing that. And I would be remiss if I didn't say these things. Okay, so I'm going to end there. I just want to give a quick rundown of my take on oil. Not that it's an expert's take by any means, but it's just some thoughts of somebody who's been interested in energy and studied energy for a long period of time and works in energy. So there you go. Do the things that I mentioned and you'll be fine.